Hi, I'm Jonah, and this is a Learn to Play tutorial for Hush Little Baby. Now this month we put together two sweet lullabies for you to learn how to play, Hush Little Baby and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Many of us grew up hearing these songs. Maybe our grandparents sung them to us, or our parents, or someone in our family. Or many of us have sung them to our kids as well. And kids just really connect with the native flute, so we thought this was a good combination. Now, over the years, I've had a lot of opportunities to be around kids that are maybe fussing or crying, and I'll pick up the native flute and play, and it really helps put them at ease. So this is a beautiful way to help teach kids and show them how music can bring ease into our lives. It's also a great song for teaching, as the first song, to teach your kids for the very first time of playing an instrument. And so then this is a good song to help introduce them into music and help them on their musical journey. It's also great if you have never learned to play a song from tablature before. This song is, because it's simple, and many of us know what it's supposed to sound like, it makes it a lot easier to take a written song in tablature and turn it into a melody on the flute. So we hope this helps you in that way as well. Now I'm going to be playing this on a whitetail flute in the key of B, which is one of the lower tones in our high tone flutes. And the high tone flutes for these lullabies, I think, have what most of us would think of as kind of a traditional feel for a lullaby. They're really sweet sounding, they have sweet notes to them, but I think you could play this on any native flute and it would sound really cool. Like on a deep bass tone flute, it would have that real tranquil vibe, especially if you're helping a child go to sleep, or you really want to mellow out the energy of a room. I think playing these songs on a really big bass flute or a low tone flute would sound really cool. Now I'm going to play through the song once here, and then I'll go through a little introduction on how to use these tutorials, and then we'll get into the tutorial itself. Now, the easiest way that I find to learn songs is to walk through them phrase by phrase. And a phrase is like the sentences that build the song. Essentially, each time you pause to take a breath, you've completed a phrase. In the sheet music, I note the phrases by using these numbers with slashes through them. Phrase 1, 2, and so on. As I walk through each phrase, I'll note anything that's unusual or particularly challenging in that phrase, and then I'll show you how to play it, and I'll play it at a really slow tempo. At that point, I'd suggest pausing the video and working on that phrase until you have the fingerings and the rhythm pretty well down at that slow tempo, and then move on to the next. Once we've moved through the whole song, I'd suggest going back to the beginning and working through each phrase again, and slowly each time you do that, bringing it up to tempo. And now I'll walk you through all the phrases. This is the first phrase for Hush Little Baby, and one of the things that this song introduces is using the sixth hole. So if you haven't used the sixth hole on your flute before, you're going to want to uncover it for this song, and this is a good place to learn how to use it. It's also a good introduction to cross fingering. So the first note is the low note on your flute, and then the second note uses the sixth hole. We have that hole open, and then we move through these two notes, and then we do what's called cross fingering here. So as we go from this note to this note, you're going to be closing one hole while opening another, and this might be a new technique for some of you, and so give yourself some time to learn the dexterity of it. And then as we move to the next note, we do that cross fingering, but again the opposite direction. And cross fingering is a really important technique to learn as you start wanting to play other notes on your flute. It really opens up a whole new world of notes. Now the rhythm is pretty straightforward in this phrase. It has one half note at the end, quarter notes, and eighth notes. in phrase 2, we again have this note here that uses the sixth hole dispersed throughout the phrase. It's a longer phrase, so when you move out of phrase 1 and into phrase 2, you might want to take a little bit of a deeper breath. Now, the main challenge in this phrase is the rhythm of this measure right here. It's this dotted quarter note, eighth note, dotted quarter note, eighth note. And the best way that I find to learn new rhythms is to count them out. So we have quarter notes. We just have 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we add in eighth notes that get in a half a beat. Then we add an and in, and that sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and so that gives us a way to be able to count a rhythm. So in the first measure here, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So then in the next measure, these dotted quarter notes get 1.5 beats, and the eighth note gets a half beat. So that sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'll play it on one note on the flute. I won't change notes. I'm just going to play one note. And I'm going to start here at this quarter note because it helps get a relative feel of the beat, because these dotted quarter notes are relative to what a quarter note is throughout the song. So if I start here, so you can really hear that dotted quarter note, eighth note, dotted quarter note, eighth note combination, that kind of offbeat feel when it's relative to the other notes, because the other notes help it to feel like it's an offbeat because they're on beat. So at a faster tempo. The third phrase is very similar to the beginning of the second phrase that we just worked through. As a matter of fact, the first two measures of the second phrase are pretty much exactly the same as this phrase here, except that we don't have the dotted quarter notes to work with in this phrase. So this should be pretty straightforward after working through that last phrase.